honestly, it is kind of a scary thing because I think almost anything can be done by agents in a more effective time. If they can't do it now, they're going to be able to do it in 5 years.
Hi, welcome to Lumos Talks, powered by Blindspot, a weekly show on growth marketing straight from the people on the ground doing the work. Our guest today is an AI technical product manager at Dell. He's the co-founder of his own identity verification startup, Ethos Social. I love the name, by the way, which means he spends his time thinking about trust in AI from both ends, the enterprise and the individual. Brogan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bro, let's just jump right in. You filed your first patent at 14. That's a pretty early start. I don't think I even knew how to really use a computer at 14. What's the story there? What kind of kid ends up doing that?
Well, so I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. My mother, she has run her own fashion line for the past 35 years. My father owned his own practice and once he retired, created a medical app. So I've been around innovation my whole life. And I was an avid lacrosse player. I would travel up to the Northeast. I played lacrosse for 12, 13 years. And I saw a problem that we repeatedly faced. And so I kind of, with the help of my parents, started to kind of design a potential solution. Whenever I would come home from practice, I would always see Shark Tank on the TV. And so it was something that was kind of ingrained, trying to find solutions. And so I created a consumer product within the lacrosse sphere. And we actually got pretty good traction. We've trademarked and patented the product, and it was a great learning experience, dipping my toes in the entrepreneurial world, and inevitably led me to getting to study electrical computer engineering at UT.
Oh, cool, awesome.
Yeah, you said something more about building trust into AI-driven systems. Where did that come from?
Okay, yeah. So I had met my co-founder when I was studying electrical computer engineering about 7, 8 years ago. And honestly, we've kind of been, obsessed with this idea that data privacy verification online has just not been anywhere near good enough. And it was honestly due to just some alarming things that were occurring in the news back then. And what we did is we actually have pivoted a couple of times into what Ethos is today, including actually when in 2022, we were building a puff-based verification system. It was like a chip that would detect deep fakes in the court of law. So, trust, authenticity has been at the core of our research for 7 to 8 years.
Cool.
You enjoyed it the whole time?
That's awesome.
Like a genuine question.
I enjoyed it. Yeah. Yeah, I honestly, it was one of those scenarios where the more that I uncovered and realized that the more I saw that, this was something that needed to be solved now. And as AI was progressing, as agentic was progressing, it was only going to get worse. You could probably tell the amount of AI slop and deep fakes that have been released just in the past couple of years alone. Once agentic starts interacting, more than humans are on the internet, which we're practically getting there. But by 2030, they're predicting for every one human interaction, there's 1,000 agentic interactions. And, when that occurs, and if we don't have the proper guardrails, we're going to be in a lot of trouble around fraud and immense amount of issues.
Right, because they can just figure it out, right? It doesn't really need the human input to kind of figure all the back channels in to do stuff. I was just hearing about the crazy security breach that I guess OpenAI had recently. I don't know if that's a similar thing that we're talking about, but yeah, the risk optics of agentic AI are pretty scary.
Absolutely, especially as fraud, wire frauds, acting and passing, the CAPTCHAs, the clicking the box used to be, the way that we would determine real from bots. And now agents have been able to pass that with flying colors as if they were real humans.
That's crazy. So we want to talk about growth and growth challenges and wins throughout your career. Like, what's something you've worked on that didn't, like, in your career as a whole, that didn't kind of have an obvious playbook where you kind of had to figure it out as you went? Like, what eventually turned it around? Like, we want to hear about some struggle with growth where you prevailed.
Honestly, the whole story around Ethos, it is a growth story. We had pivoted a couple times to where we are today. Initially, we were just a social platform that we wanted to ensure that every person was verified. And we had no source of truth. We had no way that we were going to actually ensure that people were real. But that's what we wanted to do. And that had a couple of different uphill battles, including, trying to build a full social platform. And so, the growing pains, we had to listen to them. And that alongside just customer feedback and listening to where the market's going, helped us kind of, pivot and start getting on the right path.
That's a good observation for sure. And I was thinking yesterday, I was like, we're now in, like, I kind of feel like the AI industry is also a bit like the maybe not so much in security AI, but like at least in the AI that I'm familiar with, like in like generative AI feels a little bit like the .com boom, right? And I'm starting to see like a lot of AI startups starting to close. Like, what's your gut check for whether you think something's the real deal? Like, what do you like when you're looking at these things? What makes you think, oh, this is going to work?
Well, I think the first thing that I considered is, could it be replaced by one update on either Anthropic or OpenAI's side? A lot of startups around the AI space, when ChatGPT, Claude came out, a lot of them were just AI wrappers that the next model replaced that startup as a whole. And whether they were able to generate enough revenue or get it acquired in that meantime before it updated, a decent amount of companies actually did. But whenever I was looking at Ethos and how we were building this layer, it was important that, I kind of mentioned this source of truth, having a moat that isn't just replaceable with another model update, and becoming not, just another AI wrapper, but something that enhances those models that are already going to be the winners. Claude, OpenAI, those are the ones that are growing at rapid speed. Um, you know, we have Meta, we have X. They're Grok. They're all playing parts, but inevitably, all the wrappers are going to get swallowed up by these big models, and enabling them to work more efficiently, or like what we're doing, allowing them to act as agents in regulated spaces. We're prepared to be defensible now, but also whenever regulations put in place for these agents.
Yeah. Do you think it's coming close to regulations becoming a prominent
Well,
part?
absolutely. As if you look at the statistics, fraud, wire fraud, impersonations are at all-time high, and it's an exponential graph. And they're starting to create APIs so that agents can trade on Robinhood. Kalshi is one of the big prediction markets that still they're trying to figure out how to regulate. And then just the financial industry as a whole, either this administration or the next is going to be tasked with creating regulatory standards for how agents interact online. And if you look at the worldwide, as a whole, other countries have been, putting these regulations, whether it's putting, age restrictions on social platforms, doing, X, Y, or Z that, require a verification status. They're going to need to be able to tie that to how agents interact online in day-to-day fashion as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And it's funny, just to backtrack a second, it's funny that you were talking about the moat of these AI companies. And I'm like, where's the moat? Like, I get that it's super useful, but like, where's the moat in these things? And I think we're seeing a really big trend of these companies getting these crazy valuations. And I'm so glad you talked about the moat, because like, I don't see the moat in things like that. I don't see it.
sometimes, and I learned this working with Fortune 500 CTOs, is that sometimes they believe that if they can buy it and see a better ROI than spending development time on it, it might just be better to do that.
Yeah.
And with these AI wrappers that already have the data, already have the following, it is just sometimes it's easier just to acquire them. But you're completely spot on. There's some evaluations for some of these wrappers are ridiculous, and they've gotten these evaluations
Insane.
to grow rampant into the billions within 18 months, which is absolutely
Right.
unheard of.
But also, there's the other side of it too, where their revenue has gone from 40 million to 400 million in 9 months. Like, there's the flip side of it too, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe you don't need a fucking moat now. Maybe that's not like, maybe you don't, right? If you're that cash rich, maybe you don't need a fucking moat. Like, I don't know, it's kind of crazy. Big picture, how do you think about risk as a whole when something can act on its own? Like, how do we mitigate that? Like, where are the stops?
That's an excellent question. And I think that was something that we thought about significantly whenever we were building out Ethos, because as, agents doing a web scrape, I don't think can be that detrimental. But whenever they start playing around with money and they start, acting on behalf of individuals in a public setting, and then whenever you start moving into, obviously, whenever they're acting in departments of war, doing things that actually can have detrimental, effects, not just on an individual, but countries. Um, I do think that it all stems from knowing exactly who's in charge of those agents, how that they are interacting. And that's kind of why we created this, verification side for tying agent authorization to. But I think, the bigger question is, how far are we going to let them act? And, depends on who you ask. I think that we're closely getting to the point, if we haven't already gotten there, where, agent interactions are becoming more efficient, less human error than actual humans. And so I think that that's where the regulations are going to come into play. Honestly, it is kind of a scary thing, because I think almost anything can be done by agents in a more effective time. If they can't do it now, they're going to be able to do it in 5 years.
True.
Yeah, I just want to know that there's a big physical stop button somewhere.
Some might say that there is, some might say that there isn't. Yeah, I hope that there is too. But it is interesting, kind of what you're saying, utilizing these agents now to be able to build at such a faster rate. And I think kind of what we've talked about is, there's a lot of good, but I do think that I would like to think that, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, I mean, Anthropic has built their company on, safety guardrails. And I'm pretty sure, I think I read something that one of the questions in their interview process is, what would happen? Like, what would you say if we wanted to shut down Anthropic today? Put all the stock price to zero because we don't believe that we can keep it safe. And I think the expectation is saying that, that's the right call. That's something that I have read that is incredibly fascinating, that I think people are treading lightly. And, I think that there are self-imposed guardrails that are already being put in place from the people that really know the dramatic effects that can occur.
Yeah, which makes so much sense. So what's the biggest misconception then between trust and AI right now that you've run into?
Well, honestly, I think people are trusting AI too much. Whether it is to write their emails, and not really realizing that it's either in a different font, or the M dashes are making it very clear that it isn't, that it was written by AI, but trusting it, factually. I think that there has been, an immense amount of trust put into AI. And, at the end of the day, it's as smart as the data that it trains on. And so whenever these models are doing web scrapes on, AI slop infiltrated data, I think it's going to be really hard to utilize AI as a data scraper to figure out if someone's verified or not, because you can spin up 100 different profiles. I saw a startup recently that you put in your URL and it spins up hundreds of social accounts that are fake accounts on your behalf to flood the market with AI slop advertisements for your company. And so once those all grow rampant, it is just AI slop is going to be the training data set. So I think that, trusting it to get you 80% there, but know that there's a 20% difference where you still need to utilize your own judgment and skills.
Great. Hey, we're at the part of the show where we do rapid fire takeaways. As we close out, we're going to ask you a series of questions. You can reply with a one-word answer or one sentence answer. So, one growth channel that you would double down on today?
I would definitely say IRL, in-person events.
Okay. One metric that actually matters.
I would say a metric that actually matters is customer conversion, demo to conversion rates.
Yeah, I agree. One growth myth that you strongly disagree with?
This might be a hot take, but I get so many AI swap cold emails that I don't think that they work. They've never worked for me. I think LinkedIn DMs work a lot better than cold emails.
Oh, yeah. You should just side note, you should follow our CMO on LinkedIn, Matej. He posts all those, he writes the most ridiculous reply to those auto emails, and it is the funniest thing you will ever read. I think it should be a copy paste book.
I'll have to check that out.
Okay, the last one would be one piece of advice for marketers listening.
For marketers listening, not everything is going to work. So try a lot of things and utilize metrics and commitment to trying those sets of things before you give up. I feel like people will do something for 1 or 2 days, not see results, and say, oh, well, this isn't working for me. I think commitment to the process is a big thing.
I like that. Yeah, commitment to the unknown, I think, is super important. And you've got to be nimble to switch things out. There's a really good book called The Art of the Start. And it's basically about how when you're starting up or you're in growth, you need to try a lot of things. And not necessarily quickly too. You need to know when the parameters are, when you think it's working, when it's not, because things actually do take time, right? We live in a world where it's instant gratification all the time. And we feel that if we get something out there and we don't see an immediate response, we think that strategy is bad. And that's not necessarily, people just need time. There's that side of it too that not enough people talk about. Hey, dude, thank you for coming in today. We really appreciate it. It was really great to actually talk about the side of AI that we don't really get to talk about often. So I really appreciate you spending time with us.
I really appreciate you all taking the time.